My name is Leah Eustace, and I'm the chair-elect of the AFP Foundation for Philanthropy Canada, and I'm also co-chair of the Inclusive Giving Project, of which this conference is a part. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here today to the 10th event in this series. And before we move into our first discussion of the day, I'd like to tell you a little bit about this initiative. Ontario is considered one of the most diverse regions of the world. There are 200 different ethnic origins in Ontario and 100 different languages, at least. 1 in 5 people in Canada were born in another country, which is the highest proportion amongst G8 countries. 32% of Canadians speak a language other than English at home, and in Ottawa, that percentage is actually 40%, even higher. 28% of Ontario's population is made up of immigrants, the highest percentage in the country. So Ontario is a great place for us to be doing this project in. In recent years, we've made some considerable strides in areas such as gender equality, accessibility, and diversity training across different sectors. But we at the Foundation felt there was a gap when it came to exploring diversity within philanthropy. 2 years ago, in partnership with the AFP Toronto and AFP Ottawa chapters, we applied for funding through the Ministry of Citizenship and Immigration's Partnership Project Office to launch a series that would allow us to take a long-term view on inclusion by uncovering stories of giving amongst emerging donor groups and to carve out a dedicated space for an honest exchange about how to strengthen our work and relationships within our communities. Our project is really a number of organized presentations that brings together, for the first time anywhere in Canada, donors, fundraisers, volunteers, and nonprofit managers to look at what we know and what we don't know about giving within the community and how we can work together to become a world-class, forward-thinking, and inclusively minded sector. This is the 10th of 12 workshops, as I mentioned. Already we've examined philanthropy in the South Asian, Chinese, Jewish, African and Caribbean, Indigenous, Franco-Ontarian, LGBT communities, as well as amongst women and the next generation. And in the fall, we'll be holding workshops focused on people with disabilities. Please mark October 20th in your calendars for that conference here in Ottawa, and Hispanic philanthropy taking place September 30th in Toronto. Each of these conferences is being recorded and archived for future reference on our website, which is afpinclusivegiving.ca. If you're on Twitter, please use the hashtag inclusivegiving to keep up to date on the day's events and other resources that will come your way through our tweeting community, and we do have a few in the audience. We've articulated 5 overarching learning outcomes for this project. First, we want to develop our cross-cultural competencies. Second, we want to rethink and examine the ways in which fundraisers identify, cultivate, solicit, and thank donors. Third, we want to learn about the best ways to promote and engage people on the ground and at leadership levels. Fourth, we want to gain appreciation of the nuances found within each community, so the diversity within diversity factor, and I know we're certainly going to be talking about that today. And finally, we want to offer cross-cultural networking opportunities and develop a research initiative that may stem from these events. At the end, we hope to have created a foundation from which new conversations will emerge and more advanced information sharing can take place. This is a first for our sector, both in Ontario and Canada, and some have even noted that it may be a first in North America. First time we've approached diversity, inclusion, and giving with such rigor and deep coordination. So let's really treat this as an opening conversation, a conversation that was recognized in October by the Association of Fundraising Professionals International when the project was awarded the Charles R. Stevens Excellent in Diversity Award. So thank you for your interest and for coming today. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the chair of our Muslim Philanthropy Advisory Committee, Fatma El-Mahelmi. Fatma is an Egyptian Canadian who immigrated to Canada with her husband and children in 1990. She became an accomplished software consultant and has celebrated her successes by giving back, particularly in the area of education. I had the great pleasure of hearing Fatma speak at our Women in Philanthropy conference, and you're in for a real treat. I hope she's going to share a bit of her story. So thank you, everyone, and please welcome Fatma.
few years ago, I would say late 2007, early 2008, I was sitting comfortably on the couch watching an Islamic program. And I was struck by the amount of misinformation from the so-called expert on Islamic affairs. So I shifted from my comfortable position, and all what I hear myself saying, you don't know what you're talking about. Who made you an expert anyway? You probably should go and check your facts. And you know you have a problem when you start having a conversation with your own TV. So I turned off the TV and thought to myself, is it not our responsibility as Muslims in this country to educate and inform about our traditions and our beliefs? What if we create a space of learning available, accessible to Muslims and non-Muslims alike, so we can advance the knowledge of Islam and engage in dialogues? And that was the birth of the idea of the Carleton Center of the Study of Islam. But shortly after we signed the agreement with the university and we put down the seed money, the financial market crashed. So we quickly realized that we cannot fulfill our commitment to the university, but our commitment to the center remained strong. So I decided to fundraise. And what an eye-opener that was. You guys, I have to say, have a very tough job. So naturally, I started with my direct network. Some were very supportive, encouraging, and generous, but others trivialized the idea and thought it's not a priority because there is better things that they need to support, like building mosques, Islamic schools, or channeling money abroad for humanitarian causes. So here I am thinking that I came up with the brightest idea on earth that's gonna end marginalization of the Muslim community and gonna create harmony and all the big cliches, and some people will trivialize the idea and they don't think it's a cause worthy of their support. So I was really mad. But when I calmed down, I realized all the causes are noble causes. Is it not what philanthropy is all about? To improve our living? Is to resolve social issues? So I decided to change my attitude and started to work with those people to support their causes. I even donated to their causes, which of course made me a terrible fundraiser, but that's besides the point. But in return, they introduced me to their network, and I was able to raise funds this way. So at the end, we all came out winners. The center is flourishing, and the director is here, he can attest to that. And the mosques have been built, and contribution to humanitarian causes abroad are on the rise. Why I'm telling you this story? Because sometimes we get so passionate about our idea that we tend to forget why we're doing it in the first place. The whole thing is about having a positive impact. So instead of competing, why not collaborate? So I decided after that that's gonna be my attitude from now on, is to support any noble cause and not necessarily get stuck on my own idea. Because together and collectively, we'll achieve our ultimate goal. It is my pleasure to be here today among a group of people who are compassionate and care about the world around them. Despite the cause you support, whether you are a philanthropist, a volunteer, or a fundraiser, you are somehow involved with an act of goodness, an act of planting trees for others to enjoy their shade. Our Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, taught us that the best among us is the best to humankind. We were also taught to be humble and discreet about our giving, and that our giving is not judged by the amount, but rather by our capacity to give and the effort we put in rallying behind a good cause. The advisory committee that I have the honor to chair in putting together this forum worked really hard to be able to achieve the outcomes while respecting Islamic traditions. We were also aware or challenged with the diversity from within. So in inviting the speakers, the moderators, the panelists, and the MC, we made sure that we have enough diversity. You might already know that Ontario houses over 500,000 Muslims. They come from all parts of the world. South Asia, Middle East, Egypt, China, Europe, North America, North Africa, South Africa, Central Africa, you name it. They speak different languages, they have different cuisines, and they have different customs. But they all share the values of Islam. And one of the main values of Islam is the value of giving. We were also aware of the important role that our next generation plays in giving, especially after we learned that our average age is 28.2 years, which makes it one of the youngest communities in Canada. So we invited a very exciting next generation panel that they're going to share their ideas with us and how innovative they are. With that, I leave you with our distinct speakers, panelists, moderators, and wish you a day of learning and engaging discussion. And remember that the best among us is the best to humankind. Thank you. So now I'm going to introduce Mina, our MC for the day. She is actually one of the next generation.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here among all of you, professionals in your own right and field. I would just like to kindly ask you to mute your cell phones so as not to interrupt the proceedings and the panel discussions. Thank you. I hope you're rejuvenated for some brainstorming because we will start with the four-corner discussions, as Fatma just mentioned. So we will divide into 4 random groups, each group to meet at one of the boards around the room. There will be 2 questions on each of the boards, and each group will discuss the first question and write the answers on the board. If you can please select a reporter to record the discussion, either on a piece of paper or on their cell phone, that would be great. After 20 minutes, we will ask the group to move to the next corner. So there will be 2 corners per group. After 40 minutes, you will go back to your tables and we will have a 15-minute question and answer period, so we can discuss what you've been discussing in your individual groups. As the time is limited, please provide short and concise answers similar to a brainstorming session. And if you're finished with the first question and you still have some time remaining, feel free to go on to the next question. So that is the second question. Philanthropists and panelists are also encouraged to join the discussion. So you can proceed. Okay, so as we're short on time, I'd like to just ask everybody quickly to gather your thoughts. We're going to go question by question and perhaps take a minute to 2 to answer them. So anyone is welcome to answer on behalf of your group, and I would just like to ask you to use the microphones, the 2 microphones in the middle of the floor, so we can hear and record the questions. So the first question, what factors influence your giving, or make you choose one charitable organization or cause over another? So what factors influence your giving or make you choose one organization over another?
Okay, so that was anyone in this group here. Shall I just read them out, or does anyone want to jump in? Okay, so we had factors influencing giving. First thing that sprung to mind was the link to the cause. It seemed very important for everybody. It had to reflect people's personal values. That was a big influence. There was support. It was a particular cause that was special to you. In this case, it was support for the arts, but it didn't have to be an arts organization. It could be an education project where arts was servicing, so there was a particular passion that might influence your giving. There's impact. What impact is your gift going to make? What impact is the organization going to really have? That was important. If you were asked by a peer, that was also important. And the urgency. How necessary, how urgent was it that you make a gift now? Religious obligations, very, important for many groups. Costs, is your gift going to be well spent? Is it a well-organized organization, so what are the admin costs? Is it a credible organization? You've got some track record, did they prove it? What was the capacity? Were they able to demonstrate their capacity to make your gift work well? Engagement. If people in this group felt that they were going to give a gift, how engaged were they with anything about the cause, the organization, anything at all, the beneficiaries? There was a question around transparency and trust and credibility. So that's both in the ask and in the organization. And ease of giving. There was some discussion around online. Did it make a difference or not? And it might do, but people felt that, well, if you're going to give online, you better make it easy, make sure all the links are there and they work. And people also recognize that an online gift is probably a smaller gift. So while it's easy, you would still probably have to, if you wanted a larger gift, you still don't have to engage differently. Success stories had a real impact on, in this group, the factors influencing their giving. People wanted to hear those success stories and learn other people's experience. A real-world connection. It had to be a demonstrated real-world need. Proximity of the cause to the donor. How close was it? Was it meaningful for them in a personal way? A sense of community. If you're being asked for a gift, do you feel close to that community? Was it meaningful for you? There was a lovely discussion in this group about gaining a sense of self-esteem. Like, when you give, you get back so much more than you did, just in personal satisfaction, in lifestyle and balance. This was also very important. So there's a personal payback that just comes naturally when you give. And last of all, and very much last of all, was the tax receipt. It certainly was top of mind for anybody in this group.
Thank you, Janet. I think we have time for one more question before the panel discussion. How can charities avoid making generalizations about the Muslim community? So it was either this one or that corner that had this question. That one, okay. Anybody? Okay.
All right, so the first point was that people suggested using the plural, so saying communities rather than community, so not assuming that every Muslim community is going to look and be the same. The second point, don't just use the religion lens. People have many aspects to their identities, so assuming that there's a singularity to someone's personhood is always going to be a trap for generalizations. C, that charities should consult with Muslim communities, so asking questions, finding out the information, doing your due diligence instead of assuming. And then the flip side of that was about involving Muslims in influential roles on boards, etc., to make sure that there's meaningful engagement and information exchange. And then the flip side of that was that people were saying that Muslims should also be engaged and sharing that information and getting involved to make sure that that misinformation doesn't proliferate. Avoid tokenism. Don't assume the politics of Muslim communities. We need information about how Muslim communities approach philanthropy. That there's a mutual responsibility of educating charities. So Muslims educating charities, and then charities educate, sort of like a back and forth and exchange of information. Getting specific about Muslim communities, so needs, wants, ways of giving. Muslim charities have to be accountable to the communities about what they've raised, etc. So making sure that that communication is happening with communities. And then a really basic point: treat Muslims like people. Not just this sort of symbolic. So approaching Muslims like any other group, looking for common ground, the human connection, and then recognizing similarities while respecting differences. Being proactive about intersections between communities in general. Avoid generalizations that Muslims only give within the communities that they're a part of, within the Muslim communities. The point was made that Muslims are active givers and doers beyond Muslim communities. Being more critical of what people see and hear in the media, so that there's at least two sides to every story. When someone makes generalizations about Muslims, ask for specifics and sources. So confronting those moments when generalizations are taking place in your organization. And then responding to misinformation, both on an organizational level and interpersonally. And then there was also a point about involving children in educational and awareness-raising work, so that those youth grow up to have more awareness and knowledge.
Excellent, thank you. That was a full 3 pages. Okay, so we will start with our first panel. And prior to introducing the panel, I'd like to quickly explain the format of the panel discussions. So each panel will be 50 minutes long and will follow a 10-minute question and answer period from the audience. So please think of and jot down questions while the panelists are speaking, and make them good because timing is a little scarce. So our next panel will provide the next generation of Muslims their respective perspectives on giving and fundraising. I now invite the panelists to the stage. Please help me welcome Moderator Mohamed Sofa from the Britannia Woods Community House, and panelists: Obaid Ahmed from UmmahHub, Washim Ahmed from Human Concern International, Rasha Al-Katta from WaterCan, and Leen Zaibak from Jusoor. Welcome.
Well, good morning, and thank you for being with us. We're actually, the young people are going first. It's the first time. At least we're first something, especially when it comes to these kind of discussions. I think it's good to always include young people's perspectives and also leadership and work in the community. Today with us we have very accomplished young Muslim Canadians who are active both in their community and in fundraising and philanthropy. We will be hearing a little bit of their story and their perspective on what it means to be a Muslim Canadian and also be in the charity life and making change in our world. So with that, I'd like to ask everyone to turn their mic on. There is a switch there. You can also turn it off when you're not speaking. I'm going to ask a set of questions, and the audience will have their turn in a while. I will start with Leen, who's come from all the way from Toronto to tell us about. See, we have the what do you call the home stand or the home advantage. So we'll give the auto guys a little break. Leen, you co-founded Jusoor to help Syrians continue their education abroad when the civil war started. Can you tell us about Jusoor and how you raise funds to run your projects and programs?
Sure. Well, to start off, I think one strong characteristic of the next generation is our eagerness to get directly involved in the cause or organization that we're donating our time and money to. And this was the case when Jusoor was co-founded with a group of Syrian expatriates. And we realized that the topic of education was not being addressed from the very start of the war. And even though education was directly under siege with many schools and universities being targeted, it's interesting, many forget that the uprising actually started with students writing slogans on their school walls. So we knew that we wanted to fill that gap of education and at the same time advocate that it be included in the emergency humanitarian response instead of what many thought that it should be an afterthought for a post-conflict setting. So we knew what we wanted to do. Now was the question of how do we do it? We were very lucky in that we had an amazing resource at our fingertips, and that's the 20 million expatriate Syrians. So there's as many outside of Syria as there is inside. So we felt we would be very successful if we were able to mobilize that resource to help us in our goal of continuing the education for the Syrian youth and students. So in terms of fundraising, raising funds for this, we look to that community. And so far we've stayed focused primarily on that community. We don't have a physical office, so all our meetings and communication is through the internet. So it plays a big part in our organization, as well as we do annual conferences and galas and campaigns.
Okay, great. Internet is a familiar theme with our generation, so you'll be hearing that a lot today. Speaking of which, Obaid, you co-founded UmmahHub in 2012 with a mission to redefine fundraising for Muslim communities. Can you tell us about UmmahHub and how the idea came about?
Sure. So I'll actually start with how the idea came about, and it really was 2010 Ramadan 27th, and those Muslims here who know, if you go to the mosque on 27th, the night of 27th, it is one of the biggest fundraising activity, I believe, in any other community across the world. But it was my second Ramadan in Ottawa. I switch around between Toronto and here with my family, but it was my second Ramadan in that mosque, and they were raising money for the same building, same amount of money for the second time. And what got me thinking is that they're going about it wrong. They're trying to raise a huge amount of money with a small amount of people. The math inside my head was trying to tell me the other way around would be faster. And so I went back to the office that week, and we started writing down on the whiteboard of how can we solve this problem. And it was afterwards, having discussions with a bunch of my coworkers, we started finding a lot of other problems that we as a community were having in terms of raising money, which enables us to do a lot of things, but it is a bottleneck. And we started finding things like, these are the projects that are in front of our eyes. There are many projects that are behind, hidden behind people who are running them. If you don't meet them, you wouldn't know about them. And as a community that likes to give for many motivations, we thought, how can we encourage that? So in the first quarter, towards the end of first quarter of 2011, we sort of sat down and said, okay, let's solve this problem. That's one of the things we do as software developers in the office. I run a software firm, and a bunch of our clients are startups, and we like to do startups ourselves. And so we decided, okay, we were going to build a platform to help solve this problem. And we started building what now is known as UmmahHub. At that time, it was just an idea on a whiteboard called Let's Change Tomorrow. And it became a sort of a gradual journey for us. None of our team members are fundraisers. We were not involved in this activity from the core of it. But we are good at solving digital problems. We are good at solving problems for our customers, and it's usually using internet. So we started building this platform, and in 2012, when we launched it, we found that it became a platform for people to discover projects, community projects. It could be the nonprofits, for-profit. It could be a project by Muslims, by non-Muslims, but the impact has to be within our community. And we kept it very liberal and open. We don't review projects. We let the community decide on it. If you run a campaign and the community decides not to support it, well, then that's the decision you're going to live with. So you have to make an active in terms of effort in convincing people. But we are building the tools to help organizations and individuals raise money better and faster. So using internet properly, how does social media impact you? Where are your traffic coming from? What is happening for you? If you're making a lot of noise online, which we found a lot of organizations, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslims, they were doing that. And then there was no way for them to measure it and say, okay, what is working for us? All organizations, I think any company you can pick, is always low on resources. So making this effective was the number one reason of actually building the platform.
Okay, thank you. Anything that begins on the night of the 27th is definitely grassroots, and seems like there's a great need from the community. Rasha is another of our active leaders in Ottawa. You were all over the world recently. You were raising funds for the WaterCan's Clean Water and Sanitation Project. Can you tell us more about your project and how you engage the public?
So I did. I took part in the WaterCan Kilimanjaro Climb for Life campaign. And so I was one of the expedition members that ran a campaign to do two things: to raise funds and to generate awareness. So generating awareness was fairly simple because, of course, the whole idea behind this initiative was to kind of generate momentum in my community, in my social networks, for climbing the mountain, but of course to generate awareness about the social issues of water and sanitation in Eastern Africa. And so the initiative, I mainly did crowdfunding. So that is in reaching into my own networks and my networks to generate funds. And this initiative, I ended up raising $5,000 just via my networks to fundraise for WaterCan, which provides clean water and sanitation projects in Eastern Africa. And the way I did this was by getting my networks to see my progress in training for climbing Kilimanjaro. And so that was really to kind of generate enthusiasm, to generate greater awareness, and to get them updated about my cause. So the goal would be for me to, before I traveled to Kilimanjaro to climb, that I would have reached my fundraising goal. And so that was a campaign in fundraising money to generate awareness and reach the top of the mountain.
Great, thank you, Rasha. I actually ate some cupcakes made by young guys in one of the communities. They found out the campaign and they did a bake sale in the mall and made a couple $100, and that was awesome. So the power of network and also media the social media. It's amazing. Washim, you work with Human Concern International, which is very well represented here today, and you do many fundraising campaigns. Can you tell us how you go about engaging young people and the next generation of Muslim fundraisers and philanthropists?
Thank you for your great question. So I would actually, to answer that question, so I'll go a little back, how I actually got engaged with Human Concern International. That would give you a better perspective. Back in 2010, when I started my university undergrad at Carleton University, I actually joined Carleton University Muslim Students Association. So I started as media and communication, then I became a Islamic events coordinator there. So when I joined, at the beginning when I was a volunteer, I got to know Human Concern International. On that time, some of HCI volunteers were working closely with MSA to raise funds for child sponsorship program. So that was something very, very appealing to me because well, I mostly grew up in Bangladesh where I've seen poverty for the children, and I really wanted to, from my childhood, I had an intention of doing something for these underprivileged children. So when I saw Human Concern International, I think her name, one of the volunteers, I can't remember her name, but when she approached to me at the university, and I said, okay, that's what I'm looking for. So I started working with her quite closely, helping them raising funds for child sponsorship program. Carleton University is still continuing that. They annually contribute over $7,000 for child sponsorship program, the students. So this is how I got engaged. I got to know HCI, and I got engaged with HCI. And so this is the same manner how young people actually get involved with Human Concern International. I think the most important thing is if you would like to get young people involved in fundraising, you have to create opportunities for them. You have to create an avenue for them where they can come and join. This is why we, Human Concern International, always focus on working with partnership with the different youth groups and support groups. We have pretty much support groups all over Canada, and most of them are youth. For example, we have the University of Toronto Muslim Students Association. They actually annually contribute over $40,000 to our child sponsorship program. So pretty much every universities, we like some of the MSAs, they are quite working closely with us. Also, different groups such as Syrian Students Association, who we are currently working with, organizing a fundraising gala on 5th of July. You are all invited to that, and the Syrian group, they are actually taking the lead to that event. So we always, before every single event that we hold, we actually try to see which organizations, which groups would have any interest to this event. And we try to approach them, we try to contact them and get them in the board. And yeah, that's pretty much the basic way we get the young people engaged.
Wonderful. So in everybody's theme, there's always, there has been some connection network, some type of network, and for Rasha, Leen, and Obaid, it seems more the social media and the internet it's a good medium for information, for you to send information to. And you can jump into Washim if you want to add something, and I'll start with Leen, Rasha, and then Obaid to maybe close. Can you give us some examples of how you are using the internet and social media to reach your target donors or groups, and what kind of success did you have? Maybe I'll stop there. I'll start with Leen and then Rasha and Obaid.
Do you want me maybe to take it forward? Okay. So one of the main reasons that I think my campaign was successful was because of the internet. So my first step in fundraising was I sent an email to every single person I had on my email list. Got a lot of those, auto replies of people being on vacation and whatnot, but it was a quick way for me to spread the word and to let everyone know about my campaign. And then following that, I started tweeting. And I found Twitter to be an incredible resource in kind of starting a discussion with people you don't know, kind of broadening yourself beyond your social networks. And after that, I went onto Facebook and I started to share my cause with a link for people to fundraise. So I tried to make it really accessible for people to donate, because if there's hurdles and it's difficult, people are less likely to donate. And from that, I found that a lot of the times people will come to you. So when people started to know about my cause, I got a lot of requests from the media to write stories up. which of course, generated awareness beyond my social network, which was incredible. And like Mohamed mentioned, one of the community houses that I was volunteering at did a bake sale for my cause. So kind of encouraging my social networks to get motivated about the initiative and to do what they can to support me. And so that was incredible. I started to see people donating that I didn't even know. And if looking back, kind of one of the things that I would have done differently is I would have made it easier for my network to reach out to their networks. And what I mean by that is giving them the tools to, for example, drafting email messages that they can send to their networks, giving them pamphlets, giving them bookmarks, something for them to kind of broaden the awareness of the issue I was supporting. And something that struck me too in terms of social media is one of my friends very simply did a Facebook banner about my cause and updated it as her Facebook banner on Facebook. And then a lot of her friends saw the issue and were motivated. And before I knew it, my news feed on Facebook was just covered of these banners of my cause that everyone had kind of updated. And it created a momentum with people I didn't even know. And so for her, if I had maybe created that banner, perhaps more people could have changed it to their Facebook pages to generate awareness. So looking back again, it's really to help my network generate the cause more, because over my campaign, I found that people give because of two reasons. They either care about you, so they have no idea what the cause is that you're supporting, but they care about you, so encouraging the donors to give to you as a person, or because they care about the cause. And so it's really communicating those two pieces, either the personal connection you have with your donors, or to try to give them that connection to the cause you're supporting, and hopefully there's a linkage there.
Okay.
I agree that the internet is really powerful in raising awareness. And when it comes to the situation in Syria, there's so much information, and sometimes it overwhelms people. So what we've made a point of doing is keeping the focus on education. There's 3.3 million children denied access to education, to school, from Syria. And while we recognize that we're not going to be able to get to all of them, how can we make the most impact through the networks we have? So even currently now we're educating 800 students in our schools that we set up and run in Lebanon. And we use social media as well to create kind of a campaign, a volunteers summer program to get members involved in that. So we don't just use the internet to raise funds, but to raise awareness and get member engagement. We're very strong on Facebook. I think we have 40,000 likes right now, but it's not about just having a page or having a website. It's how do you get as many members engaged with that platform and have the content as strong as well. If you don't have the strong content to back it up, then it's really a lost cause.
We've actually worked with the engagement and the conversion philosophy. Part of, as I said, part of my career in 7 years has been in terms of helping startups raise more sort of sales, customer base there. How do you engage people online? If you believe engaging people offline is hard, engaging online is even harder, because the opt-out is so easy. It's so easy for them to close the browser window that you have no control over that. So how do we encourage people to, one, stick around with the cause, support it financially, if not then socially, and how a lot of our customers ask us, how do we go viral, which is a question that any executive in a room has probably asked. And we always tell them, you gotta engage people and then ask them. And then when you ask them, your content will go viral. And so what we do is, in our platform, we help organizations who are setting up the campaign with the tools to actually build the engagement. So your Facebook feed, your Twitter feed, your email list, all of them are push outs. So you push your content out, and you have to push it regularly. So our system will remind you how to do it. We are building features to figure things out and say, how do you plan that for a whole campaign? And engage them consistently, because they will forget. They're out of office, their social media stream is flooded by the time they check it. And you don't have to spend money on Facebook ads and Twitter ads to get to them. You just have to be consistent in that. And then on top of that, what we have done is once somebody converts, one, you have to know what converted, where did they convert from. But once somebody converts from these channels for you, we actively present them with an option of funding your campaign. So they have read through your campaign, there's always a call to action of fund your campaign. The second call to action is to share your campaign. We are working on ways to figure out how do we motivate them to fund. So when they click on fund, they get an option to choose a pre-existing amount, or they can enter their own amount. And we have been playing around with that for about a year now. It is very interesting of what that starting amount starts off to be. Depending on what channel they came in with, so if there was a friend's referral, we present them $100 as a first option. They take it. They usually take $50 to $100 as the first option. All of that stuff helps us make the platform better. But if they have donated, then the first thing we do, we congratulate them and we ask them to share the campaign. We ask them to share it with their network. We found that they are the highest in their trust right now with your campaign. So why not ask them something rather than just give them a hug and let them go? Because they're not going to come back. You can have all the email campaigns in the back running to actually help ask them to talk about it more because you have supported us before. They have done their job. You have at best 2% conversion on that online. So all of these online mechanisms are designed to get the engagement going. As Rasha said, Facebook, social media helps, email list helps. As Leen said, the internet itself can be a very good tool. You just have to invest time and effort in it. So we, recognizing that as a challenge, what we have done is build a platform that helps organizations and individuals ease into that. There's a lot of content, there's a lot of interest to be generated. There's a lot of social networks out there. We support majority of them, but the one thing we give is analytics behind the scene for it. So, if you're talking about it on your LinkedIn and your Facebook and your Twitter, and you're only one man effort behind it, you're not going to do a good job. So we quickly give you the ability to assess what networks are working for you, what is working, what is not working. Is LinkedIn converting better than Facebook because your campaign is more geared towards that kind of crowd that you have? Or your Twitter is converting better than your Facebook, so why not concentrate on that channel more, or at least with the priority of it? So
okay, yeah. And that's great. Thank you very much. It's very interesting because I think I'm the person. I go to people, so I talk to people, and I get the resources that way. But going online, it's even an interesting concept for me because I don't have that the assurance that something will come in. Although there's some effort going in. But Washim, you talked about how actually human concern goes into established groups, whether in universities and communities, and you ask them to support and do campaigns. What are some of the popular fundraising ideas or campaigns within next generation Muslim fundraisers, particularly the young people who are in those settings, and how different is that from let's say the general society and what else happens in Canada?
So I would say some events are quite similar, some events are not. For example, we have worked with many support groups. We have an Egyptian group that we worked with, a group of Egyptian youth, Bridge to Balade, this is the name of their group. They're mostly from the Egyptian students from Carleton University and some of the alumni and others. They got together and they raise $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 per year for economic empowerment for this project. And Fatma is actually one of the pioneer of that group. What we do with them is traditional fundraising gala, fundraising dinners. We have another group called Gentler and Softer Heart, a Yemeni group basically. They're very creative in their methods. we had a very successful international food festival with them quite 2 years ago. Actually, it was in Senilaya Center. Okay. It attracted a lot of attention from the community, from everyone. And one of the reasons was because we Muslims are from diverse background, from diverse culture, and our food, we have many different types of foods and dishes. And this is a great opportunity to introduce our culture, our food to other people, as well as raise funds. We were very successful in raising funds with them. We always do some, in every Friday, we have a community gathering, a Friday prayer at HCI. Right. We do a barbecue every Friday, and we raise funds for whatever the money is raised, the profit goes to child sponsorship program.
Okay, good. That's great. I think that's also very important, going to where the people are and using their established networks to help causes. We're just coming to end of this part of the conversation, but we're opening to the audience soon. I do want to take one question, and you can take a minute or two. We are short on time. And tell us maybe where you would like to see your philanthropy to be, and what you like to see accomplished through your work in the years to come. And we'll just go ahead.
So I don't think I'm a philanthropist yet. I think the platform that we have, the vision behind it is that I want to enable our community to launch much more projects. I want to get the talent out of our community into the mainstream and tell them that there is a lot of support for them. Whether you're trying to run a business, start a business, whether you're trying to do something for the social circles, whether you're trying to build a mosque, whether you're trying to write a book, become an artist, whatever it might be, there's a lot of support in the community, and this is the platform, hopefully, where you will be able to launch your campaign, engage your community with it, get their support, and keep that engagement going. Once they've supported you, it is very vital for you to keep that connection going, and you don't have to raise $2 million to make an impact. You can raise $5,000 as Rasha did and make an impact. So we can raise small amount of money from large amount of groups and really have a diverse sort of impact in the community.
So where I want to see myself as a philanthropist, I would say one thing that always motivated, the most inspiring code that inspires me to do my activities is the code as Fatma coded in her speech on the codes of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may Allah's peace be upon him. He said, "Best of you are those who are the most beneficial for the humanity." So down the line, I want to see myself the most beneficial for humanity, regardless of where I stand, regardless of what I do, regardless of what I'm having. I want to be the most beneficial to the humanity, and I want to do something for those underprivileged people. So it is to some extent is subjective. So hard to actually explain where exactly I want to see myself. So all I would say, the most beneficial, if I, according to wherever I am standing on that time. In regards to my organization, HCI, we always have this conversation with our executive director and our board members. They're very visionary people. They want to see HCI at some point. Down the line, very successful organization, supporting all the projects in different countries. So that's it, I guess.
Okay. Great, thank you.
I would like to see my philanthropy. I think it's still going to be focused on education. I think that's a cause I feel really passionate about. Even though as an organization we've raised $1 million in 3 years from Syrian expatriates, I'd like to move beyond the individual giving and gain that same success at institutions. Currently we're part of a consortium for higher education that we launched at the Clinton Global Initiative, and we've offered more than 150, 160 scholarships to Syrian youth. But that requires a lot of work in approaching the universities and engaging with them and convincing them that they have a direct role to play in saving the intellectual capital of Syrians. And while we've had success in the US and Europe and Middle East, we have not one Canadian university who agreed to join the consortium. So I'd like to see my engagement increase in terms of the institutional level.
Thank you.
So just to wrap up on that, just to pull back from Obaid's point that, sure, it's $5,000 that I raised through my campaign, but it impacted 200 people. So moving forward, I'd like to look at initiatives that, you make a big impact, not with a lot of resources. And I think often we focus, when we think fundraising, we think events. But the truth is for every 50 cents spent for an event, you get $1 back, which is not that much. But if you're doing campaigns through social media, being creative in your reach, all the funds that you get from donors, it's all just profit. So looking at that, that's something that I want to move forward with, kind of knowing how to engage social media, especially because, as Fatima said in the beginning of her speech, the Muslim community is so generous, and the value of giving is so entrenched in the faith that I'd like to tap into that more and see how we can really engage a community that's already engaged, but kind of taking it one step forward and being creative in fundraising and seeing how that could move forward. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rasha, and thank you all for that. Now we're opening the questions to the floor. There are mics in the middle of the room. Please feel free, and I think we can take a few. Go ahead.
I have two concerns. Am I heard? For the online giving, the issue of tax receipts and the issue of scams, how do you provide tax receipts? For somebody like me who have limited resources, I find a tax receipt help me recycle my taxes again the next year for charity. The issue of scams is very sensitive in the sense that you're a Muslim community, and if you need to show impact. Do you follow up after you have collected the money to show people that you didn't take that money for yourself? Because we know there's out there people who use it as a scam.
I'll talk about it from a platform perspective. So in our platform, as I said, we don't review before you go live, but we review your campaign pretty much within 24 hours. And then the way the review is done is usually the content has to be some sort of credibility with it. We encourage all of our campaigns to be run through a Facebook account, so you have to authenticate yourself with Facebook to have a verification on it. Otherwise, we actually tell on the campaign page, we tell that this is an unverified account, and we use social media to verify the organization or the individual itself. All the organizations, if they are non-profit, they do tell us about their tax IDs and everything, so we can verify it with CRA in Canada, and in US as well, we can verify that with 503. From a scam perspective, in terms of when the campaign is done and it's successful, do we follow up? Usually we follow up in terms of keeping an eye on them, because we have an interest for them to raise another campaign with us, so we have a social media team that actually monitors them. But more importantly, our system keeps reminding them that they have done something, that they've raised money, they can do it again, and we keep an eye on that as well. The community itself is a really good way of identifying scam. People will notify us, they would stop donating to them. We find these trends and then look at them and say, okay, what's alarming about this? Why is this happening? We also have the scam the other way. We actually have a technology integrated right now where we are able to detect if somebody is running a campaign and funding it themselves through stolen credit cards. That has and can happen. So if we are getting a lot of donations from the same person, different credit cards, from the same computer, from the same network, our system will block them off. We are notified about it right away. So technology-wise, we take as much precaution as possible, but these are all just precautions. Something will happen. There will be scammers out there, and we are there to sort of identify them and sort of fight that. In the engagement part of it, I think it's very critical, and we always tell our campaign owners when they're finished their campaign or during their campaign to keep the engagement going. Post about your updates, even if you raised your goal. Tell your donors about what have they done.
Okay, and sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, also in terms of keeping them updated, it's important not just right after that, the campaign has wrapped up, but even 1 year, 2 year, 3 years down the road, because you don't want only the point of engagement to be when you're asking for money. So with our campaign of university students, we had 37 Syrian students at Illinois Institute of Technology, and we raised, I think, $200,000 in 3 months to get them into the university, to get them started. But now 4 years later, 4 of them have graduated, and we made sure to reach out to every donor that gave $10, $1,000, and notified them, they've graduated because of you. And throughout those 4 years, we kept them engaged through updates.
Okay, and you know what? You want to add something quickly?
For HCI, we have actually integrated some a couple new features in our website for tax receipt purposes. We have to issue over 10,000 tax receipts every year. There are 3 ways you can get, if you donate, you can get tax receipts. Number 1, when you donate, right away you can get a tax receipt from our websites. You can print it out right now. Or the second option is that we email you at the end of the year if you provide you with your email ID. Okay. If you don't, we provide you with your mailing address, we send you a paper physical tax receipt. So it is very easy and accessible, and also we have a very dedicated person in our office, Colonel Abdi is here actually. He works really hard on tax receipts.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jump into that. So Obaid's platform, UmmahHub, it's a crowdfunding platform. And my campaign was mainly using a crowdfunding platform through WaterCan to get people to donate online. And immediately after they do a donation, they get a tax receipt. So that part was simple. But the following up piece I found very important, because it's not only important to let them know at the beginning of your cause why they should donate, but also during the fundraising, let them know about updates to keep them engaged. And I found it interesting that people who had donated one time donated again and again and again, because they were keeping tabs of the story, of the development of the campaign. And in the end, when I'd reached the goal, I emailed them back, letting them know the successes, where their money went, and sending personalized postcards to everyone. So it's these little things that don't seem big, but it really makes an impact with donors, and it's nice to be acknowledged and appreciated, I find. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you, everybody. I was fascinated to hear all of your examples and best practices, which are really impressive. I would be very interested, and I think others would be as well, in anything that any of you do that would be especially attractive to a Muslim donor, or things that you avoid doing that turn off donors of the Muslim faith.
And I will say that our time is limited, so brief comments would be greatly appreciated. Go ahead.
So if I understand your question properly, it's what turns them off and what we should do. So basically, when we work with Muslim communities, they pretty much understand the values. When we work with the support groups, they design and organize the contents of the events in such a way that it is consistent with the values. Of course, when we work with the Muslim groups, most of the events, things such as alcohol, halal food, these are pretty common issues among the Muslim communities. And when we work with the communities and support groups, it is not actually an issue because they all understand. For example, we are working for the Syrian event, which will on July 4th in IDI Center, July 5th at the IDI Center. It happened to be in the Ramadan. So the the venue is accommodating us, our groups, and they're organizing the events and the contents, the participation. It's usually a gala event for the Syrian groups, but they're doing it in such a way that it is consistent with the theme and practices of the Ramadan. So basically, you don't want to do anything that might directly contradict their faiths and values. As long as, other than that, Islam is quite broad and comprehensive and accommodating, so they can accommodate everything. As you can see, everyone is here in it's sort of a Muslim philanthropy event. Everyone is here. Islam is accommodating. But there's some stuff that always, but it's not a big deal when we are working with support groups. Thank you.
On that point, my campaign was supporting a cause that was not Muslim-based. WaterCan does projects in Eastern Africa, which is not just a Muslim community, as we know. And so it was incredible for me when I was looking at that kind of scan of who my donors were. I found out that I also had Muslim donors, of course, but we tend to generalize, you know, kind of with the comment that we did in the 4 groups, is that Muslims only give to Muslim causes, and that's in fact not the case. And I saw that firsthand. The Muslims, when they find a cause that they care about, they will give. If they see the impact, they will give. If they see results, they will give. And so we kind of, I guess, create more awareness that just because it's not a Muslim cause does not mean Muslims won't donate. Muslims will donate to causes they care about and causes that they know make an impact.
Okay. And are we taking one more question?
Did I light something on with that last point?
I wonder, thank you all for the insight of the success of your stories. But are you working in isolation, or what kind of partnership you have, and what kind of win-win situation, win-to or win-lose situations that you experience?
I think partnerships and collaboration were key to our success as Jusoor. There's more power in numbers, and our partnerships have really allowed us to broaden our reach, to raise more money, and to raise awareness as well. We couldn't have come as far as we did without the partnerships with the universities, without, in Lebanon, on-the-ground organizations, grassroots, the UN. So I strongly encourage, if you're in an organization, think of the partnerships you can make, the collaborations you can create, and you're really leveraging the impact you can have through partnerships. So don't underestimate the power of those.
Okay. I'd like to add something to her. If you have noticed, all my conversation was about partnering with different organizations. Needless to say, our Syrian groups, the partners that we are working with, Canadian Relief for Syria and many other partners, we have raised over $6 million in past 2.5 years, 3 years, with the collaboration of Syrian partners. And we don't hesitate to admit that it wouldn't have been possible without partnering with those groups. So in charity works, this is the key, the most important thing is partnership.
Okay, and we'll take another question over there.
Hi there, this is Christian Mehta from the AFP Toronto chapter. I also work at Ryerson University in fundraising. And I've spent a lot of time at several of these conferences thinking a lot about the intersections between charity and justice, and whether or not our fundraising work can actually achieve social justice. I'm wondering if the panel might be able to comment on the potential impact of charity work on social justice causes, issues locally and globally, and what are some of the challenges that we might be facing to break down some of the very big social justice, injustices, I should say, in our community today?
I'd like to jump in just briefly. Thanks for the very interesting question. I think automatically we think charity is leading to justice. It's a good. So of course justice must be a byproduct of that. But I think in terms of charity work, it's important to ask yourself, are you creating a Band-Aid solution, or are you being part of the long-term solution? So, you know, food banks are very important. Many people rely on them, but are you creating a dependency on a food bank? You know, how about partnering it up, attaching to it skills training, so that you're moving that person forward while still taking care of them for, you know, the immediate time.
That's a very, very nice questions, actually. I really appreciate that you asked. It has always been a concern for me, being trained as a lawyer. I've always been concerned about social justice issues and charity. This is one of the motivations, actually, why I am working for charity. I believe, as she said, charity always leads to social justice. This is why HCI, we are working on women empowerment projects in different countries where women are not privileged, discriminated somehow. We try to empower them, providing education, skill trainings, and the others. Also children, we work a lot of education projects, empowering the underprivileged groups. We always strive to do that. However, when it comes to social justice per se, there has always been challenge for the charities, especially when you work in an international arena. Charity organizations like us always try to stay away from the politics that are involved, and which is always challenging. That involves a lot of criticisms, a lot of obstacles in executing the works on the ground, and so many barriers. But at the end, we are empowering, we are making the social changes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Quick comment on that. From my end, from our platforms, and we are kind of hoping that the creativity of all of these charitable organizations and non-charitable organizations as well will come about and solve the problem in a more creative way. Partnerships is one way of doing it. Addressing the challenge of fear in doing something good. It's small footprint. Sometimes people, as communities or as individuals, we look at making a really big impact early on. But I believe that you can solve that challenge by solving smaller problems, like HCI does, like Leen does, like Rasha did. These are small footprints, but together they are bigger, and they can solve that problem. We as a platform are not charitable organizations, we are for-profit, but we hope that regardless of what your status is, regardless of what your motivation in terms of are you a for-profit or non-profit, I think as Muslim businesses we need to be more conscious about that. And as Muslim charities, we need to be more conscious about that too.
Just really jump in terms of charity kind of leading to social justice, one important piece that I have a background in international development, so often I see a lot of issues with sustainability. So, you'll do a cause, you'll do a campaign, you'll start a project, but is that sustainable? Because it may be a Band-Aid solution for that time being, but and I think donors are also interested in knowing that the money they're giving is going to make a lasting impact. So with my campaign, okay, great, you provided water for 200 people, but it's sustainable. So I had to really communicate that to my donors to let them know that it is sustainable. And these are the results that will, take place 5, 10, many years down the road, that this little project is going to impact so many people. And I think that making that linkage and communicating to donors, whether Muslim or otherwise, that their project, that their money is going to sustainable projects is a really important piece that I think is often forgotten.
Okay. Well, that will do for our panel. Again, a big round of applause for these guys. And so again, Rasha, Leen, Washim, and Obaid, thank you very much. And I'm sure your ideas were relevant and important to everybody here. And